So, once again, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining your miracle mindset for this week. So, remember for our Miracle Mindset Monday, this is a generalized reading for the week. There are no personalized readings. If you are interested in your own personalized, in depth miracle mindset, then please feel free to visit awakeningmiracles.org. So, for this week, once again, I am going live on both here on Facebook and here on YouTube. And so for this week, we have our generalized message, and then we have our two decks that we're going to be pulling from for this week. And the two decks we're going to be pulling from for this week is the first one is the answer is simple. So that's our first deck. And then our second deck is the Ascended Masters deck. So those will be the two decks we will pull from to give us a generalized forecast for the week, saying, where are we going to be and how we can navigate this. Good morning, Shirley. Thanks for joining. Thanks for being here. So those will be the two decks that we're going to use. And now let's jump in to our overall message for the week. And so our overall message for the week is all about hope. Now, hope can be used in two different ways. It can be used by the ego. And the way that I see that the ego uses hope, it uses it to put our happiness either into something or, which meaning into a situation, into a relationship, or it will use it in order to put our happiness out until tomorrow. And that's what it will continue to do. So we can either use hope the way the ego does, which is, like I said, it's all about putting your happiness out until tomorrow. It's about putting your happiness into situations, into people, into relationships. Or we can use it the way that Spirit does. And the way that I like to see that Spirit does use hope is it uses hope in order to facilitate a healing. And the way that it does that is, even though we may be seeing the darkness, we are much more willing to see the light in that darkness. We're willing to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And that's how Spirit uses hope. It says, even though I am surrounded by darkness, my focus is on that light. My focus is on being willing to see things differently. And that's how we can use hope. And so another way of looking at how Spirit uses hope is that it will say, basically, I'm willing to expect a miracle. Even though everything around me seems terrible, I'm willing to expect a wonderful outcome to whatever is happening. So those are the two ways that Spirit can use hope. So either we're going to let ego use our hope, and it's going to, make us put our hope into situations and into people and say that's what's going to make me happy. Or we are going to use Spirit's way of hope, which is I am expecting a miracle. I am expecting good things to happen. And even though all may seem dark around me, I am still willing to see the light. So that's our overall message for this week. It's all about hope. So now let's go to the let's go to the Answer is Simple deck, and let's see what beautiful messages we have for this week from the Answer is Simple. And once again, this is one of my very favorite decks, and it was actually one of my very first decks. So let's go ahead and let's see what beautiful messages come from this deck for this week. All right, so let's see what beautiful messages we have for this week. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. So, our first card for this week is all about being patient. Okay, being patient. And so, a lot of people don't like the patience cards because the patience card is all about really just saying being patient doesn't mean that you're sitting on your thumbs doing nothing. It means that you are waiting for the next right action step to be revealed to you. That's how we can look at the patience card. And the patience card, it's not about just sitting there and not doing anything. It's really about preparing your mind, preparing yourself for the beautiful outcome that is to come, like we talked about with hope. So that's our first card. Our second card is all about it's not an emergency. Okay. And so this card really is representing that with that patience, it's not an emergency. We don't need to be running around trying to do 50 different things all at 50 different times. All we really need to do is to just be willing to say, okay, I'm going to do what's in front of me to do. I'm not going to do it in a state of panic. I'm not going to do it in a state of haste. I'm going to do what is in front of me to do. And the whole time I'm going to be doing these things, I'm not going to be panicking. I'm not going to be, in a tizzy. I'm going to be as still as I can, because that's what's so important. So these two cards together, the be patient and the not an emergency cards, are really giving us this beautiful opportunity this week to remember that it's not about rushing around. That's not hope. Hope is not rushing around hoping that it works. Hope is about showing up and saying, I don't know what's going to happen here, but I know it's going to be great. And so I'm going to walk in confidently. I'm going to walk in reassured. And I'm going to walk in the gratitude, because this is the thank God card. So I'm going to be walking in that gratitude. I'm going to be walking in that sense of thank you so much because everything is already given to me. Thank you so much that I have all that I need. Thank you so much that that everything is working out in my favor. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And remember that gratitude is not about just saying, thank you for this and thank you for that. Gratitude really breaks down to I'm going to appreciate things. And that's what's really, really important. So as you're feeling that gratitude, as you kind of tune into that, you're tuning into that appreciation. And you're really saying, this is so good. I feel so great because I'm just appreciating that all things are always going to work out in my favor, even if I don't know how that's necessarily going to look. And then our next card is, and I think this is so beautiful because we're talking about hope, which is we turn on the light. And this is about turning on the light of your spirit. And this is about, once again, being willing to see things in a completely different way. That's what it's all about. It's not about you necessarily saying, seeing things from, that negative, seeing all the darkness around you. We can recognize the darkness. We can see the darkness, but we much rather turn on the light and allow our source to judge, to see the situation for us. That's much more what we want to get into the habit of doing, instead of to this habit of seeing the darkness and focusing on the darkness. Because one thing A Course in Miracles says that I think is really great is you could focus on the darkness, but all you're ever going to see then is the darkness. If you focus on it, that's all you're ever going to see. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't recognize it. It doesn't mean that we don't see it. It simply means that we are not willing to play in it. We see it, we recognize it, we acknowledge it, we process it, and then we let it go. Because what we really want to do is we want to begin to celebrate the truth of who we are. Good morning. Thanks for joining. Thanks for being here. So that's really what we want to begin to start doing is we want to start celebrating the truth of who we are. And the truth of who we are is, in fact, that light, that joy, that happiness. That is what we are. And that is what we want to really begin to celebrate and to focus on, that we are the light, that we are the joy, that we are the happiness. That's what we are. And that's where we want to put our focus. So this week, it is about being patient. It's about recognizing that it's not an emergency. It is about recognizing that we want to walk in that gratitude and that we want to turn on the light of our spirit, which once again simply means that we are saying, okay, I see this situation. I recognize it. I recognize, the hidden beliefs or the past that's coming up here. And instead of, fighting it or going into it or trying to replay it, I'm willing to see the light. I'm willing to celebrate the truth of who I am. And in that, I get to start anew. I get to, every day, every moment, we get that new beginning to start anew. And we get to clear out that fog as we are coming into that truth of who we are. We're clearing out the fog in our minds. We're clearing out those dark places so that we can really begin to create or co-create a beautiful life. But it does take that patience with yourself. Sometimes you're going to get in that darkness and you're going to think it's real and you're going to think it defines you and you're going to think that it's just all around you. And that's okay. We have to be willing to say, I see this, I recognize this, but I'm also willing to turn on the light. And turning on the light means turning on our awareness to spirit that is always within us. And instead of actually going to the Ascended Masters deck, I want to go to the Gateway Oracle and pull an affirmational card for us this week, because we just had all of those beautiful cards. So let's see what beautiful affirmation we can kind of use for this week. So let's see what message we can most use for this week. And I love it. So the card that we got for this week is, I surrender joyously to the ebbing and flowing of life. I surrender joyously to the ebbing and flowing of life. So let's go ahead and let's read the questions that we can actually ask ourselves about letting go. And see, that's another thing that we can really look at with hope is, we can either say that, you know what, yes, and make the decision in our minds, there's only darkness, that's all there is, there's nothing I can do, it's absolutely terrible. Or we can choose to let go of the value that we hold for that idea and say, I don't necessarily know how to see the light, I don't even know if there is a light, but I am willing to experience it. I'm willing to let go of the value that I hold for this idea that I must suffer and that I have to go through all these trials and tribulations. And I'm willing to let that go in order for me to really begin to flow with life. And once again, that takes patience, because you're going to want it right then, right there. I want it now. I want it now. Okay, I gave it up. I let it go. But the question is, did you really? Did you really let that go? Are you really willing to see the light, no matter what may occur? So let's see. We can ask ourselves this week as we go throughout the week, is there anything I need to release? So is there anything that I really need to let go of? Any old beliefs, any old patterns, anything that's coming up? Remember, that darkness that rises or that darkness that comes up, it's just asking to be released. It's not there to challenge you. It's there to say, do you still want me or not? Then, is there a person or a situation I need to let go of? Is there anyone who needs to let go of me? I mean, that's a question I don't think we've really ever asked ourselves. Is there someone who needs to let go of me? We know who we might need to let go of, but is there someone who might need to let go of me as well? So, some really great questions that we can ask ourselves for this week, along with our beautiful message about hope and allowing either spirit to use hope or allowing the ego to use hope. And just practicing being patient, which means being in the moment, practicing it's not an emergency. We do what's in front of us to do in a grateful and thankful manner. As we do that, we're willing to turn on the light of our spirit. As we turn on the light of our spirit, we're celebrating the truth of who we are. As we celebrate the truth of who we are, we get that starting anew because we're clearing out the fog in order to begin to co-create the life that we desire. And the way that we do that is, once again, using hope the way spirit does. I'm expecting a miracle. There's only good things that are going to happen here. And also, we practice that by letting go of those old beliefs and old patterns that come up that say, no, you can't do that. So that is this week's Miracle Mindset Monday. If you are interested in your own in-depth Miracle Mindset Monday that's personalized just for you, then please feel free to visit my website, awakeningmiracles.org. So I thank you for joining me. I thank you for being here. And I just send you all of my love for this week. So thank you, thank you, thank you.